Scarlett on your right side. So now I
yeah, the bag. Here we go, all the way to the bag.
Thomasin.
You mean me, especially.
Guys. Look up to the left side, sir. Guys together, looking up.
It was kind of unnerving.
That we have a choice.
Me with a mustache? I mean, I won because I got rid of it. I don't know fake mustache.
Patterns on the left side, mate. One more time, patterns on the left. Patterns on the right.
All the way right.
Chin down. Right here. Just stay still. Stay still. On the left side, leave the left.
Mustache, and the first time we saw it on Taika, what your reaction was. We're going. So, it was a crazy $1 million. Now Mike and someone has been Robert. Most time the house. Okay. Yeah.
Up top.
It's a story about a mother and a son. It's a story about a little boy who's missing his dad and builds this kind of imaginary world to protect himself from, you know, the harsh reality, the very, very harsh the atrocities that he's experienced around him. You know, it's a cautionary tale. It's, you know, it's a film that actually has, at the end, you're left with a lot of hope at the end of this film, which, you know, I think is very different and unexpected. Rosie she would do anything, of course, to protect her son. She's you know, a fierce mama lion, and she, you know, she is in a kind of in between a rock and a hard place, really, because on one hand, you know, she's protecting her son from, you know, this horrific tragedy that's happening all around her, you know, unspeakable things by actually, you know, by putting him in the Hitler Youth Program and making it, you know, kind of appearing that they're sort of a normal family when everything is obviously doesn't make any sense, you know. And then on the other hand, she's, you know, has this underground operation working to, you know, protect and save as many people as she can, and so she's really on edge all the time. I first heard about this project actually from Chris Hemsworth, who had just finished working with Taika on Thor Ragnarok, and it wasn't even, I think, even a suggestion that I would be a part of it. He's just said, there's this incredible script of Taika's, you have to read it. And then it came again to me through my agent, who said, there's this incredible script of Taika's, you have to read it. And I read it, and I just was blown away by how, you know, how beautifully written it was, how touching it was, poignant and different. It was just so different. I had never read anything like it before. And I think a lot of people that have seen it say they've never seen anything like it before. You know, I think you're left with a lot of hope at the end of this film. You really, you know, you're left with two kids who have overcome, you know, all these obstacles to actually find a kind of likeness between one another, and you're left with, you know, this humanity, like this touching human connection that these two kids have, and I think it's very hopeful because of.
Yeah, it's about a boy who he's growing up in World War II in Germany, and you know, he's been indoctrinated into the Nazi culture, and he discovers that his mother is hiding this girl in their attic, and his whole world, I guess, is upturned, and he has to figure out how to deal with this person who, I guess, in his eyes, this is the enemy. And really, the film is about that relationship and how he comes to change and get turned around. the lens of children is very pure and it's very truthful. When you ask kids things, they're very direct and they just tell it like it is. And I was really fascinated by, I'd never seen war films truly from the point of view of kids. I've seen films that have kids in them, but I'd never seen a film that really was we were experiencing the journey and the story with this 10-year-old boy, and that became very important to me. And then I realized that this film, it's weirdly, it's become very resonant right now, and it has a relevance that when I first wrote it 7 years ago didn't really exist. But now the world is changing, and there's a lot of things that threaten the fabric of good that I think most of us want to exist in this world. So really, this film now is taking on this whole new meaning and importance. I mean, they're amazing. Scarlett is just incredible. I love her so much, and I've never seen her do anything like this performance, and I just think she's incredible. The kids are amazing. Roman, who plays Jojo, blew me away, and he's such an emotionally engaged kid. He's very smart and very sensitive, and that's really what you want from children who, if you're going to use them as actors. And yeah, he really carries this film. And everything really hinges on him because he is basically in every scene. Well, just going off what audiences have experienced and the reactions that I've seen, audiences love the film because it's emotional, it's funny, and it switches tones all the time, and it really feels like a real human experience. On the surface, yes, there's humour there as well, but there are a lot of hard-hitting gut punches in the film, and again, it means.
To be honest, there is not really any pitch for this film. You kind of try to explain it and immediately you go into a dark hole and I don't know. So I would say it's a film that finds the light in an otherwise really horrible time, and then I would just say just watch it because I can't really say more than that. Elsa is a young girl living in the walls of an aspiring Nazi boy's house, and she's a young Jewish girl, and she's a victim, but she's also incredibly strong and courageous and witty and full of compassion and love, and yeah. It's kind of like a bickering brother and sister relationship. At first they really butt heads, but by the end of it they realise that they're, each other's kind of best friends and saviours in a really scary world. I hope they will just be reminded of the atrocities of the past, and to remember to kind of not be a bystander and to stand against hate.
It's about a 10-year-old kid that's totally brainwashed and manipulated to love hate and the Nazis and to be obsessed. And it's about how one day he finds that his mother, Scarlett, is hiding a Jewish girl, Elsa. And it's about how his opinion on Hitler and his morals and his values change because of this young, courageous girl. As I think he's really he's really manipulated, and his life is all his kind of goodness and all his innocence has been sucked out of his eyes, and he's this kid that's kind of scared, and it's scared, and he's worried of the future, but he's also struggling between these two sides, and he's in a really messed up time, and he's having to deal with hard things that no one should ever have to deal with. It was great. I mean, he really taught me a lot. He taught me about life and energy and scenes and scripts, and he's got a very personal and great and kind of encouraging humour that's it's really funny, and it's unique. I think they'll love it. I think I hope it goes as well as TIFF and London, so I hope they get this.
So Jojo Rabbit is set in World War II, late in the game, and it's mainly set in Hitler Youth with a little boy called Jojo who is enrolled in the Hitler Youth, and it follows his story. I mean, this was such a fun role. It's such a good ensemble, and my character is like a Hitler Youth leader, and like what happened with a lot of women in Nazi Germany towards the end of the war, they got enlisted in all sorts of jobs in the military towards the end. So it's, a lot of my dialogue is actually based on real teaching manuals. So it sounds like jokes, sounds like satirical jokes, but it's actually, real dialogue from the time. And so yeah, it was such a fun, interesting character to play, and doing the German accent and everything. It was, yeah, it's great.
Amazing.
Taika's amazing. He's a real idol of mine. I really look up to him. All of his movies, from even from the little things he did in New Zealand, and more recently like Hunt for the Wilder People and What We Do in the Shadows, and Thor, obviously. I just adore all his work and adore him as a director. So, hopefully we do more stuff together. Yeah, I mean, it's hard because this movie is obviously very funny, but very serious subject matter. So, I mean, it was hard because at times we're playing around, we're improvising, but the subject matter is so heavy. But I think the resulting film is just very powerful and very entertaining, and I really hope people come to see it and appreciate the message behind it. Oh, I mean, one time I went with Taika, and we travelled down the river in Prague, because we filmed mainly in Prague and the surrounding areas, and it's just so beautiful, and so it was good to do some sightseeing there, but often went out to dinner with Sam and Stephen Merchant, and had a good laugh during shooting, so it was really fun. It's a very entertaining film, and I just hope that they appreciate the message of tolerance that's hidden amongst all the satire in the film.
It's a story about a single mother who's trying to raise her child in a horrific situation, which is Nazi Germany, and she has to kind of teach him her ways of what she perceives to be human, which is being empathetic and being kind and being understanding, because he's been brainwashed by the ideals of Nazi Germany. So it's a story steeped in positivity and love. I play a character called Freddie Finkel, who is in love with Captain Klenzendorf, and that's played by Sam Rockwell, and we've kind of ended up being on the wrong side of things by circumstance, because Captain Klenzendorf was a potential war hero, if you can ever call a Nazi a war hero, and so he was then kind of demoted, and so we kind of look after the Hitler Youth, and that's what we do. It was just great. It was very, very relaxed. I remember kind of getting off the plane in Prague and just being whisked to this huge warehouse full of, Nazi uniforms. And for me, that's when I kind of start visualizing the character outside of myself. So it felt very strange. Sorry, it's not your funny anecdote that you wanted, but it was, it was weird at times.
Well, Yorkie, he's a bit like Jojo. He wants to be part of the Nazis, but he also feels like we don't need war, and that we can just love people for who they are. And he's really sweet and just charming little, guy I just want to squeeze. I just really, really love his character. It was just absolutely hilarious filming everything, in film, out of film, mucking about behind the scenes. Absolutely hilarious, and I enjoyed it so much. Taika, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. He's an absolute man-child, and he's just so immature, and he's just one of the funniest guys I've ever met, and he's hilarious, and working with him was an absolute pleasure.
A plot overview, yes, that's a tricky one. Well, this is a movie seen from the perspective of a 10-year-old boy growing up in Hitler's Germany towards the end of the war, and he's a little boy desperate to be a member of a club, and unfortunately the club he's chosen is the Hitler Youth. And he has no real friends. His only real friend is an imaginary friend, and it's Hitler. But Hitler really, in his mind, is just another 10-year-old boy. And it's about a young boy who's been indoctrinated into these abhorrent ideas, who meets a young Jewish girl that's been hidden by his mother, and begins to realise that everything he's been taught by the Hitler Youth is nonsense. And it's really that coming-of-age story about a young boy, through communication and compassion, realizing the error of his ways. And I think it's a very beautiful and tender and funny story. Well, midway through the film, the Gestapo come knocking at the door, searching for anything really, and I play one of the sort of Nazi Gestapo officers. And I think as a tall English actor, it was inevitable someone was going to ask me to play a Nazi at some point. And I'm glad I was doing it with Taika, because he's done it with humour and with drama and emotion, and I'm very proud of it. I was a little intimidated because my day one scene was with recent Academy Award winner Sam Rockwell, and I was a big fan of Sam. I'm a big fan of Sam, and I was very anxious. I had to do a German accent. I'd never done that before. But Sam was adorable, just so easygoing. Quickly, by the end of the day, I was just trying to make him laugh to ruin takes just for my own amusement. Taika created a great collaborative, warm atmosphere, so it kind of ended up being the perfect environment, really. Well, I just thought this was a movie that felt like it was part of a long tradition of movies, right back to Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator in the 1940s, that mocked Hitler and the absurd ideas that he tried to propagate. And I think it's a great shame that we still need to be making that point even now about the absurdity of hate and the kind of power of love. And I think, you'd think that 80 years later we wouldn't have to keep making that point, but unfortunately we do. The first time I saw the film, I was amazed that I started off laughing, and midway through I started to get quite emotional, and by the end I was in tears, and that's quite an achievement for a movie about a boy and his imaginary Hitler. And I think it's very warm, it's very funny, very empowering, very soulful, and I think just a really uplifting and, dare I say, important.
I wrote it 5 years in a museum, and it was the Memorial Museum for Peace in Normandy. So I wrote it with the soundtrack of a bomber going off, every 5 minutes, and it was, it was a very moving place. So I did the research and the plot, and what else can I tell you? It was a moving place. To get there every day, there were life-size photos of people who had been deported and killed in the extermination camps. And every day I'd come, and they'd fade and disappear as I went by. So it was extremely moving. So I wanted everything to be accurate, but to have a very powerful story and a strong plot. People were saying, oh, the war's over, this is never going to happen again. And then little by little, country after country started taking it, and it went to China, and it went to Russia, and any place in Europe where there was the far right, they took the book. And I watched it spread, on a map, saying this is incredible, it's spreading here, and then it went over 20 languages. It became a play, and then it became, the film. So I thought that's incredible. I never wanted to see this in my lifetime happen, so I'm not actually pleased, because I was happy to have it just as a historical novel, and people just never to remember. But that it does come at a time where it's become so relevant today, and there's a rise to the far right. I'm happy that it actually took its time, because it came out at the right time now, especially the film at a time like this. I was doing my PhD in an office, and someone lent me, my supervisor lent the office, and he came in and I had a sea view. He just put his hands back and put his feet on the desk and started cracking jokes. So right away we just hit it off and we began laughing. But Taika was very loyal, because by the time he first took it, which was 8 years ago, till today when it finally happened, it's been a long time. And after he came here and he had done Thor, I was getting a bit nervous, because I thought, okay, I knew it was very important to him, and a lot of other directors might have said, okay, I've done that, I'm not coming back. But he really had the story, I felt, in his heart, and he meant to do it. And it was a bit a crazy, risky thing for him to do, but he still did it after. So he really took the story and the characters, and he intended it to do as he always meant to. The film to me has many layers. It has the funniness, but it has all the poignancy and the seriousness and the sadness. But he's got a note of joy and a note of hope in it too. So if they can just pick up all of that, then they'll really come away with a lot.
Well, we started with an amazing script. Taika had spent a long time writing an adaptation of Christine Lunen's book, Caging Skies, and the script, when I first read it, was incredible. It had pathos, it had heart, it had humour, it had everything you want in a film, and the movie you see now is quite similar to that original script. Taika is hilarious. He's so much fun to work with. He's going to work every day is like going to play in the schoolyard, and you never know quite what's going to happen, but as a producer I always know that we'll get the movie, which is great. I think that when you come out of this film, it's you feel really hard. You feel like, I think, a little bit sad at what sometimes happens to children in times of war and what's happened in the past and sometimes happens now, but also really heartwarmed that love that people can change.
You know what, we started shopping this film around in 2012. We were in the Berlinale co-production market, so in Germany, talking to German co-producers saying, hey, you want to make a Nazi comedy? It's taken that long to get to this point where when actually the response was actually quite amazing. I think people in that country, you know, when you go to Berlin and you're seeing they actually they pay homage to their history. They're not afraid to put it in your face, and I think it was timing-wise, it's now really good time for people to take it to another level. Not to make fun of it or anything like that, to enable another younger generation perhaps to understand that we need to talk about this in another way. We need to be vigilant and be careful that our actions are going to affect the younger generation. So I hope people take away that they're responsible for, you know, next steps.
Okay, so what did you think of Scarlett Johansson in that video? She's come a long way and made a statement for herself since her teen years, where she appeared in films with actors like John Ritter, Sean Connery and Robert Redford. Her breakout role came opposite Bill Murray in Sofia Coppola's Lost in Translation. Johansson, who was 18 years old at the time, convincingly played the role of a 25-year-old wife. Do you like my t-shirt? You can get one for yourself in the description.